Fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. I'm here with Neya today, a friend of mine. We became friends at the Tennis Warehouse event we had in San Luis Obispo. Today we want to talk about her journey in tennis, but also journey in content creation and all kinds of stuff. So stay tuned. But how are you today, Neya?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. It's nice to connect and keep in touch since our Tennis Warehouse event. Yeah, I'm good though. I'm getting married next week, so there's a lot happening in my world.
Pretty stressed, yeah.
Yeah, we're calm but slightly stressed.
That's okay. As long as you're calm, that's good. But I think by
Yeah,
like maybe 2 days before, you will start feeling a little bit more anxiety, maybe.
yeah, that's what I think as well. I think it's before the events actually start that I'll feel a little more anxious, but right now I feel good. I feel like we're organized.
Are you working like on the side of this, or are you just on leave now for
Yes.
the wedding?
No, I'm working and then I'm going to be on leave like late next week, just before, because I don't want to use all my leave in one go.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we had a discussion in California, like what are we called, or what are people like that do content called? Some say content creators, some say influencers. They all stink to me, but you had an interesting word called KOL, and what is that?
Key opinion leader. Since you guys were all having an allergic reaction to being called influencers, I was like, I'm gonna make you feel better and feel like, you're really contributing to society. So yeah, in Asia we call influencers KOLs, and that's just like what they're always referred to. No one really calls them an influencer. But I think key opinion leader it's quite a literal like term. I feel like it's quite a good reflection of what people are trying to do, I guess, in whatever niche that they're working in, is trying to share their opinion and be a leader in a space, I guess. So
Makes
I think
sense.
it's
It sounds
appropriate.
fancier though, kind of.
It does sound like it's like a full-time job, like it's like a professional thing.
Yeah, which it is. I mean, in many cases, I guess that's
It
the thing,
is.
right? So, and you have
Exactly.
to. People sometimes think like when you're doing content, it's like so easy. You just film a bit and then the video happens to be just edited by some
Yeah.
AI and then you're done, and then you can go on and drink
No,
margaritas. It's not really
definitely
true.
not. I feel like it's funny when I make content around my friends or like my family who don't make content, and then they observe me and they have this realization like, oh my God, it's actually a lot of work. And I was like, yes, these things need planning, and like you need to think about how it's going to come out and then do the editing, and it all takes a lot of time. So yeah, it's definitely a lot more going on behind the scenes than what it seems.
How did you get started with the opinion making? Instagram is mainly the one, right? Like it's not
Well,
you're not on
yes.
TikTok.
No, I just okay, so my story is I used to live in Hong Kong, and then I lived in Hong Kong, and then I lived in Myanmar for a bit. And in Myanmar, I started making vlogs on YouTube, and it was more because I was an expat living in a very new country that I had no idea about, and it was a developing country, so it was very interesting, very different from what I was raised in. And so I was just making content to showcase like my journey. And then after I left Myanmar, I think when I went back to Hong Kong, I kind of lost a bit of like creative zest and then stopped making YouTube videos and kind of led a bit more into Instagram. But I was always like had Instagram. I just never was like being intentional with posting content there. But I think when Reels kind of opened up on Instagram, I was like, how fun. Because I had played around a little bit with TikTok during COVID, but I didn't really love TikTok as a platform, and also TikTok isn't available in Hong Kong. So yeah, I played around a bit more on Instagram and then started making reels. And then I kind of just stuck to like short form, and I felt like short form was just like takes less time than a YouTube video, for me at least. I think a YouTube video just takes more energy, or there's more room for error, I feel like, in a YouTube video. Yeah.
No, I think like the YouTube thing, people think, okay, I can be a YouTuber, but the Instagram it's so much easier to like be dense. I mean, you still need to edit a lot because like obviously it's you gave me some tips there around like, okay, this is 1 hour, this is 1 hour, no, this is 1 minute 30 seconds, and
Yeah.
then you can maybe cut that down to 45 seconds or 50 seconds and make it a bit more concise. While in
Yeah.
YouTube, it's tricky because you have to maintain attention from the audience with like a 10-minute video, and that's quite tricky. Like
Yeah.
you will see at some point people's like attention spans are goldfish today, so like it will drop off, and then that makes the format like take a long time, because how do you make 10 minutes fascinating for your audience? It's quite tricky.
Yeah, I agree. And I think like YouTube actually requires way more storyboarding, because you've got to hook them, and then you've got to keep them in to watch a certain amount and then hook them again, right? So I think YouTube is definitely a lot more effort. And because I was vlogging, I felt like YouTube also required, I tried to focus on like subject matter, like specific subject matters, or else I just felt like you would never stop filming. And it just was like too taxing on your life generally. Yeah.
So your journey in tennis, like you've been playing for a few years, and you're doing pretty massive strides from what I can see in your game. But your father plays. Like, what's your background story there?
Yeah. So mum and dad both played, and they just played like community leagues when we were younger. And so they would play like on a Monday and a Tuesday, and then it was just like a local court nearby, and they would take us out to play. But both my parents are like intermediate level at tennis. My dad's probably like a bit better, but we never really learnt the skills from scratch when we were like playing. We would just hit, and we didn't really, I guess, feel the need or have like a lot of money to have like tennis lessons. And so I didn't actually have my first proper tennis lesson until I was probably, I feel like it was probably 14 or 15. And then I had some tennis lessons for a period of time, and then school just became like too much. So I didn't really like focus that much more on it. But when I was learning and having tennis lessons, it was just to learn foundational skills and actually like learn how to hit the ball. But then from there, I pretty much had like a hiatus for probably like 11, 12 years where I just played tennis socially every now and then. I had a hit randomly, maybe like once every 4 months, and I wasn't taking it seriously. Had a very old racket. I never had a racket like of my own. My dad just had like random ones he bought from the op shop, but we would just use. Like, we just not taking tennis seriously as a sport. It was just like a very much so recreational and just very for exercise and just like bonding. Yeah, and then I've always enjoyed tennis though. I've always found it like a really fun sport and a good like run around. And also I'm like competitive by nature. So I think I've always enjoyed like competing in that space. And so before COVID, I introduced tennis to my fiance, Alex. And I was like, oh, we should maybe start playing some tennis. And so I think we naturally started playing tennis. And then during COVID, when we were in Hong Kong, there was like not much to do. So we would just book outdoor courts and play. And from there, I still hadn't had a lesson because I felt like it was too expensive to have lessons in Hong Kong. So I didn't have like my first lesson until, I don't think I had my first like proper lesson as an adult until I was in Singapore. And I finally started having lessons there. And then I was like, oh, actually, this is really good to get a lesson. I should do this more often. I don't know. I feel like, I'm not sure if other people do this, but sometimes you just think that you can play something recreationally and you're like, I don't really need to have a lesson. But actually, once I had lessons, I was like, oh, right. So there's actually like a lot of technique that I don't know and I haven't learned. And so from there, I just started playing more. And then I started documenting my journey of me going to play tennis and outfitting and things like that. And I think, yeah, from there, it kind of just became something that I was like, I, as an adult, really want to like spend my time getting good at this, because I think that's like a good thing to do when you're an adult, as well as grow skills and become better at something. And so, yeah, I kind of just spiraled from there. And just now I play tennis like 4 times a week. And it's like, I'm not amazing, but I like to enjoy the sport for what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the spirit. And like, you went to the Australian Open, and you were there with Asics, and you seemed to have a great time. You met Patrick Mouratoglou and a lot of other tennis celebrities. Like, did that give you more inspiration to work even harder on your tennis? And like, how was that experience?
Yeah, for sure. I think that when I went to the tennis warehouse, like starting there at that summit, I definitely I felt like an imposter, because I was like, guys, this is not my full-time job. And I'm also not at a level that is like the level that you guys are at. You're all like amazing at tennis. But it was inspiring because I was like, I'm not that bad. Like, I was like, I actually can hit. I just need to have more self-confidence. And so I was like, I need to really go home and practice more. And I think I was really motivated from that trip first about getting better and being able to play at a level that was more competitive, and just, yeah, be able to learn more skills within tennis, like learn how to properly slice, like eventually would like to do a drop shot, like things like that, and become a more versatile player. And I think, yeah, the ASICS Summit in the Australian Open was also really cool because it was like people of all ranges of skill level. And so I think for me, that was very comforting, because I was like, you forget that tennis yeah, you want to be competitive, but it's also there to like bond people, and it's a social sport and you can come at any level. And yeah, I think a reminder to myself also to like not worry so much about what people think, right? Because like, sure, it's awesome that you're really good at it, but I'm trying to like get there as well. Yeah.
I think it's a pretty common thing when you're doing content creation or influencing or you're traveling around. It's like you're feeling like the imposter syndrome thing, right? Like you're feeling, okay, what am I doing here, or why am I talking to these people? And I think everybody has that at some point, unless maybe you're a mega narcissist and you're like, I'm the best at everything, so no worries. So I think that's more natural, and it's like a more of a humble approach to it to have. But it can be a bit, anxiety inducing to be at these events sometimes. Even for me, like when I'm hanging around pro player practices and discussing stuff with the best pros, then you sometimes get that feeling of like, who am I and what am I doing here? Which is probably true in that case, but it's quite fascinating. So the Australian Open as such, like I'd never been, so it seems like an amazing tennis event, like a festival of tennis. Is that your feeling as well?
Yeah, so I've been going to the Australian Open since I was since I was in high school, like young high school, even maybe in primary school. Back when they had none of these stadiums, it was just Rod Laver. It was a very low-key event in a way. And I remember it was before they ever moved into because they've been through a few phases. They had, when I was younger, they just had they had some sponsors like Garnier, and they would just give away free stuff. And so everyone was like having a lot of fun. In the summer, they'd go get their hair done for free, get like hair gels and all this stuff. And then people watch tennis. But then it kind of moved into being a bit more corporate, and it kind of went a bit too far to that side where it was like all just kind of corporate, like more business, like banks and stuff. It was just like not that interesting to like an average consumer. And then now, I feel like they found a really nice in between where they're trying to make it more an interactive, like fun day out. And so that even if you're not interested in tennis, you can go there and enjoy yourself. Like there was a lot of different like booths for like food and drinking. And so I think they've definitely gotten to a level now where I feel like it's like at a world stage level where it's really like a fun event to go to. It always has been fun. It's just like, it's all relative, I guess, over the years. But yeah, as someone from Melbourne, it has been really nice to watch that tournament grow and see how much, they make obviously a lot of money because they built lots of nice stadiums. So they're putting all that money back into into the actual tournament. It's been nice to see them really develop it and make it bigger and make it better. So I think it's a very fun, happy slam. I think everyone's always in good vibes when they're there. A bit rowdy. Australians are a bit rowdy, a little bit of drama with the players and all the media. So I think it's a good kickoff for the tennis for sure.
Yeah, it looks amazing, and you get the strong FOMO, but then it's like a long flight as well from Europe, so it's like a little bit of two sides to the story. You really need to commit to go there. So what did you do while you were there? Like you watched some like matches that were like highlights, or was the ASICS thing the best part of the whole experience?
Yeah, well, so the ASICS event was pretty much like 5 days before the AO actually started, and they were kind of celebrating the launch of their new GelRes 10. And so that was really interesting and fun, but that was really a really cool like build up into the Open because we got to meet up. We got to play tennis with like Patrick, which was, I was not expecting that. And when he walked in the room, I was like, oh my gosh, he's here. And then the next day he came and he was there again, and he was there to play tennis with us. And that was just, so because I follow him on social media, so which I think a lot of tennis people do. It was just a bit like surprising, but yeah, that was really fun. We got to play with like some of the pros like Paolini and Musetti, and yeah, it was just like that was a really cool experience. Also seeing Djokovic in person, I've never seen him like up close. I've seen him on the court, but not so up close. And Dimonor as well. So I think the ASICS event was like a really great like build up into the AO, and that was so fun. It was just kind of like setting the summer tone for Melbourne. And then yeah, the AO itself was definitely really fun. I went on the Sunday. The Sunday was the first day, the 12th, and I went that evening, and we watched Sabalenka and Zverev. Those matches were both kind of like not that fun because they were just like dominating, so it's just like not that much competition. But a match that I got to see was Djokovic versus Alcaraz, which was really fun. I just had mad anxiety the whole time. I had to go for a walk at one point because I was going for Alcaraz, and I was just like, it was just like the first set was so intense, and then the injury, and then Djokovic was just playing like incredible. He was playing like his peak time where he just doesn't miss anything. Like nothing was going out. Everything was such a good hit, and it was just sad to see like Alcaraz couldn't really get control of the game again. But it was awesome to see like Djokovic play at his peak level, really. But that, I think that was probably like the highlight match from the men's. So that was really awesome. And I was lucky because I booked those tickets before the AO even started, and so we just got super lucky that that game fell on that night. So that was really awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing to see players like that live. Like, and also the closer you get to the court, the more you understand the court speed, like the way they hit the ball, how explosive they move, and how amazing they are as athletes, right? Because if you watch on TV, you see it like from a bird's eye view, and it looks really slow, and you're like, why doesn't he hit to the right there? It's not that easy, but it's so impressive to see it up close. I saw Alcaraz. Was it last night? No, the night before, playing in Rotterdam, and it's always he brings the crowd. Like, I mean, he was playing a Dutch guy, so it's against someone that everybody roots for, but people love him. It's like even the practices, it's packed. He just brings a smile. He has such a good charisma as a player, and it's easy to root for him.
Yeah, he's just such a nice guy. I mean, I respect Djokovic a lot as like a player, and I think he's really great. But I think Carlos is just a lot of fun, and he's the future of tennis, and there's a lot happening there, and he actually shows personality on court, which is really entertaining. But yeah, speaking of speed on court, I also watched Rune play Medjedovic, which is a Serbian player. Yeah, and that was wild because they were hitting. They were on Kia Arena, so we were sitting like at second row, so we could get a really good view of them playing. But they were just smacking the ball, like the pace at which they hit. I was like, this is not that fast. I saw they slow it down on TV because I was like, this is moving really fast, and they both had the same playing style where they're just hitting with so much power, but it was also frustrating to watch them because their like room for error was so high. So if they just mishit something, it's just like smack it, but then it's out. And so it's a very like, it could just be like a serve return done. Yeah. And so yeah, that was pretty crazy to watch them hit like so much power. Whereas I think the Djokovic and Alcaraz game, they had a lot more like finesse and a bit more flavor to like their shots. It wasn't just so power driven.
Yeah, I think Djokovic is usually very good at controlling the opponent. So he makes the opponent kind of play his game, like he's like a chess player, like he uses the middle of the court really well, moves him around to make him kind of uncomfortable, so he cannot really go all in on the shots. While there's some of these like younger guys are more like kind of this type of college tennis, which is like bashing, they're going to go bash, 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 and the guy who hits the most winners, he wins, kind of. That's the style you expect from that. But he plays a lot of strategy, which is quite fascinating to see how he controls the rallies in a way.
Yeah, for sure. I also saw Sabalenka play Pavlyuchenkova. I don't want to butcher her name, but that was actually like a pretty good match. I feel like Pavlyuchenkova, I'm saying her name wrong. I'm just going to call her Pav. Pav came into the game a bit too late. Like the first set, I feel she was just not really getting into the game. But then once she got in, like their hitting was really good, and it was a really good rallies and good competition. So I think that was also a good match. I think she could have maybe beaten her if she had just made less errors, which is probably for every player. So yeah.
What do you think, like as kind of being more and more involved in tennis now, a little bit later in your career, kind of, do you think tennis is doing a good job, like as a product, like professional tennis, at selling it to the people, or even like recreational tennis, if you can get into that? Or do you think there's a lot of room for improvement in the way we package the product, or we need to make it faster, we need to make it more enticing for the younger audience?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question, because actually I considered this a lot when I was at the AO, because I think when we were in San Luis Obispo, we spoke about this with Will, who's from Tennis Tribe. And he was talking about how he was like, there needs to be more fun, like energy to tennis, and like tennis matches to attract and to grow the sport. And so I was like actually constantly thinking about that at the AO, because I think the AO was finding this like nice mix of being very energetic, and like they had quite a big party energy at night. They had like a DJ set and everything, and they're trying to bring in, like, make it fun for just a normal person who's not there necessarily to just watch tennis. And so I think I just kept thinking about it, and I was thinking about it also in the matches, because I was thinking, I think I was on one court, Kia Arena, which is like an open court for the public. So it's just like first in, best dressed. And I think I was kind of getting annoyed by like the crowd just being so rowdy sometimes, and just like always yelling, or like people coming in late to sit, but that's just because I've grown up watching tennis. And so I know what the tennis etiquette is. Like I get a bit irritated by it, but it was interesting watching like how the different players were responding to it. So I think Azarenka, when I watched her, she was like super bothered by people moving in the background. And then there were some players that would just like play when everyone was talking. They didn't care. And so I think it was really like interesting and made me think about, oh, how do we make tennis more, I guess, interesting to watch? And like, do we need to move in that direction of the golf at like I think there's like that Waste Management Open or whatever, where you can just be rowdy and like live golf, where you can just be rowdy and drink and make noise. And then the players they're just part of the entertainment, but you can like bother them in a way. And so I don't know, I think like tennis is a very traditional sport. And so I think it will take time to kind of move that way. But I do think the AO will be one of the starting points for that shifting that way. Because even at the AO, they had a court 6 was an outdoor court, and they put a bar, like a big bar right next to it. They even had to move one of the matches because people were being so rowdy at the bar. So I was like, oh, so interesting. You're already like prioritizing people having a good time over, I guess, the tennis. And so I think for tennis to grow, I think there needs to be like a happy medium between both, right? Like teaching people kind of the history of tennis and like that level of etiquette to have, because when you get to like a final, you don't want people like yelling and being crazy, right? So it's like kind of finding that happy medium of helping people understand like why you want to be respectful for the sport, but also commercially being able to like encourage people to come and enjoy it and to grow the sport and to make it an event to go to, not just for tennis, but just for the overall energy and vibe. So I think it like tennis, I think they're doing a good job, and I think they're being like creative, especially with the AO. But I think like for like tournaments like the Wimbledon, I couldn't see them really being like that far down the spectrum like AO. So yeah, I think it's interesting for like the tournaments and just generally trying to get people to watch tennis. I think there's an opportunity for it to be more interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a balance, of course, but like, because you have the traditional tennis fans, of which maybe I'm one, but I'm also seeing like there's like you grew up watching tennis, like you have to shut up. You can't walk in like in the middle of a rally. You can't do this. But on the other hand, like if you're going to bring in new people, they're going to be a bit upset if they're like, shh, and do this. And, oh, the etiquette list is 10 points. You have to follow that. Otherwise, you can't be here as a fan. You want to encourage them to come and like enjoy the vibe, right? So then maybe having a bar next to the court, that could maybe be a step too far, depending on the time of day, maybe. So I think it's interesting, but I think they need to consider like also the players need to think about that as well. Like, so of course they are getting upset that they have to play in noisy environments, but maybe they have to learn how to do it, because at some point it will change a little bit, compared to this.
Yeah, for sure. And I was speaking to an American guy at the AO, and he was saying that college tennis is so fun in the US because apparently it's just like really rowdy and everyone's just noisy and cheering and all that sort of stuff. So I think it really depends on like the sporting history the background that you have and like where you grow up as well. So I think, yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be really finding like a happy medium where it's at an appropriate level of having fun, but also not deterring like players, not distracting players, or like the quality of play.
Do you find like the matches are too long, or do you think that that's like an issue for people, that it's like, okay, 5 sets, especially on a Grand Slam, but then you like it's a 6 games, it can be 3 hours, it can be 5 hours, it can be 1.5.
Yeah, I really enjoyed watching women's matches because it was shorter, and I just also thought like their playing style was a bit more interesting because, as I was saying, like when you watch like Renee just like smack the ball, it's just not that engaging for 5 hours. And that match that I watched, I think we ended up leaving because it was like 12 a.m. and that game went on to like 1 a.m. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the women's matches because it was shorter. The men's matches for me, definitely at the AO, at least because it was really hot, it was a bit more of a struggle to just like sit in that chair the whole time and watch. And I was even sometimes I was thinking, it might be nice to just go home and like watch this at home so I can step away and then come back. Whereas like when you're watching it live, 5 hours is a long time, when I think the playing style is like kind of less interesting now. Sometimes it's like definitely power driven. And so, yeah, I think I do think that my attention span, and also with the nature of like social media and everyone's attention span's like really shrinking, it is really hard, I think, to like get people to sit there for 5 hours and watch a match. Even the Djokovic Alcaraz game, which was on a weeknight, people were leaving early to like go home because it was a weeknight. People probably had work, but also it was just too long at some point. You're like, okay, I've seen what I've had to see. I'll just watch the rest from home. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I mean, like I get tennis overload as well. Like when you're going to these tournaments, like in the Rotterdam, like you're watching tennis for most of the day, you know. And I prefer playing over watching, but I enjoy watching, of course, it's part of the job of the game. But like if you are on the third match, you're starting to get a bit fatigued. You're like, this has to be very good for me to keep the interest, you know. And then I had like a match, Deminar versus Goffin, when they're both wearing the same kit, and they both have the similar playing style, and you're like, this is not entertaining, you know, like this is
it's
not
not
like,
stimulating.
No, you're trying to see it from someone who's not in tennis, and even if I am not like stimulated, what would they think? You know, this is not like, who is this guy, and now why do they have the same kit on? You know, they play for the same team. What's the story there? You know, so it's just a lazy approach, I think, from the tennis brands to be like, hey, you know, you have to have a home and an away kit, you know, like you wear another thing so you can actually tell the players apart, but they don't do that. They just give them the same kit, and now you're playing at this, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. You can definitely get a bit monotonous when you like are just watching and you're just like, okay, yeah. So I don't know. It is interesting. I think it was good at the AO because a lot of people could like come at nighttime after work and then they'll just like pop into different matches. But there was a day that I went all day and I stayed for the night session. And it was just a really long day. I think it was like 13 hours. And I was knackered when I got home. I was like, I think I've had enough tennis. I don't think I want to watch any more live tennis. I just want to watch it on TV. So, yeah.
Yeah, the live tennis takes some energy. I think like staying, I think two to max 3 days that's my limit. And then I go like, okay, I like walk around the practice courts because I like to see like, okay, they're trying something new. They're working with their coach. What is the coach saying? That's my favorite. Like in the Rotterdam, we could walk really close, so you're like just behind the player and you can hear their conversations and stuff, and you can even talk to the player if you want in some cases. So that's a great way of like enjoying the tennis experience without it being a match, you know, for example.
Yeah, for sure. I've actually noticed that a lot of like avid tennis fans or like people who are at your level actually prefer to just go and like watch practice courts or watch people spar versus actually watching the match, which was interesting. I did actually watch like a few of the practice courts when I was like walking around. And I was like, yeah, I guess it is more interesting. At least you get to get up close, and if you do know all like the technical things, it is interesting to see like what changes they're making or what they're wearing, all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. When it comes to, I mean, you went there, you had the ASICS 5 days before. Like working with brands in the tennis space, I guess that's you work with brands in different kind of categories, I would say. Like, do you see a difference? Do you see like something that could be improved from the brand side? Like, it's always a complicated thing, I think, to work closely with brands on certain things.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because this was the ASICS Tennis Summit was the first tennis summit that they've done. So they are trying to actively lean more into tennis because they are biggest market share is like running. And so I think that they put a lot of energy and time into it. It was very well organized. And so it was definitely more of like a media event than it was more of a media event more than anything. So they had like a lot of sports journalists there, people from like different tennis like blogs and all that sort of stuff. And so that was quite interesting to like be in the mix with those people versus it being, I guess, like a brand trip per se. And so I think that event was really well run and like well paced. I think sometimes like with these, when you work with different brands, sometimes you can tell when they haven't really like well thought out what they want out of you. Yeah, either they don't know what they want or it's just like too packed and there's not enough time to like breathe or have like space for yourself, which I understand because I guess a brand is trying to maximize their time with you and get as much out of you. But I do think it is better for events or like brand trips for them to leave more space for you to have downtime to actually like relax and then also make content, because I do think like a big piece that brands want is like they want you to make your own content and post about your experience. And so I think sometimes brands spend too much time focusing on filming like content for their like official platforms. Whereas I think like they actually get way more out of us if we post our own content and experiences on our own platforms, and like it's way more reach. So I think there's an opportunity for brands to definitely like, make more time for that and space for that in like these trips or summits that they host. But yeah, I think the ASICS trip for tennis was very well run. They had a good balance of like not like over pushing their product, or like trying to make it too much about like a very rehearsed like brand launch. So I think that was quite good. Um, yeah, I think that's about it really.
Yeah, I would say, like in my experience, that's the same as you. Like they usually last minute, and then it's like, oh, we need some influencers for this stuff as well. That would be great. Then we get free, like, or free, somewhat paid publicity and or cheap publicity in many cases. And then they don't really have a plan, so they can't maximize like what's the whole purpose of this, of bringing all these people. And I've seen it numerous times over the years, and I always get a little bit disappointed by like that they could have partly engaged you before, which I think is a better idea, and say, hey, we want to invite you to this, but we want it to be a good experience for you and us, right? A win-win, right? So how would we work together to make the best type of content or relationship
Hmm.
from this experience? So you can bring your ideas and say, I think if I get a few hours, I could do this. And if you can, bring me like that, or just if you have pro players there, we can have a hit with them, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
Instead of
that's
just
true.
having like a clear itinerary already pre-planned, or even worse, nothing at all, which I've seen as well. Like, or they just have like, okay, we have this day, maybe you take videos, right? So it's like a bit.
Yeah, that's true. I do think they do these like open content slots, but I do think if they have a good social media team, then they would like pre-plan with you, like, oh, hey, like bounce ideas, figure out what they need for that shoot, and make sure that you guys are like pre-prepared. Because sometimes I feel like they just throw you into it, and then you're like, oh, hey, like to somebody else, like you want to collaborate for this, like you kind of need to be very, very crafty, like on the spot, impulsively, which doesn't always come out with like the best content.
No, I think it's like if you have also time to prepare, you know what to expect. So I should bring this, and I, that this is where I'm shooting this. Like if you go in any production that is like an, advertising shoot and stuff that I've done in the past, like planning is everything. Like you're planning a lot. You're just planning what to do. So like the end result would probably be like 10% of what you shot, but at least you have a strong plan. So you're gonna get there at some point. While here you're not really sure what you're gonna record, so you try to record a bit of everything, and then it might end up being really
Yeah.
not that succinct and not that good in the end. So I think that's something to learn for them as well, like to try to be a bit more strategical in what they want from the calls or the influencers.
Yeah, I agree. What was your thoughts on the two finals at the AO?
I hardly remember who played in the.
Okay, Sabalenka played Madison Keys in the
Yeah,
women's,
yeah, this
and the
one was great.
men, yeah, that was a good one.
I
Yeah.
think I preferred that one. Like who was in the men's final? This, I sound like an
Oh, it
idiot
was
now, but
very boring. It was Sinner and Zverev. It's
yeah.
very okay that you forgot because it was a very boring match.
Yeah, I think this was a good advertising for women's tennis. Like if you compare
Mm,
the finals, I watched both of them, but the Sinner, Sinner Zverev, it's like kind of similar, like two lanky guys that don't miss. So it's like, okay, I mean, Sinner is so impressive the way he can actually like add interest to his shots, so he like gets more power from a defensive position than anyone I've ever seen, because he's so strong in the legs and has such good technique. But obviously, like as experience, it's not gonna be the one that puts a smile on your face. Like there's not gonna be a lot of entertainment for non-tennis fans. It's gonna be something for like the drama of the score is gonna be the main
mm,
story. And while I thought the key story is nice because she was always talked about as a big talent. She was in a final 2017, didn't win that one, and now she got like a kind of finally a big title, a slam. So and she has pretty good charisma as well. Like so, I think there was a good story. And for me, being in the racket space a lot, like she also switched rackets just before the season, so it was like a good story of that also, like how that can affect you in a positive way.
yeah, for sure. I think when I saw because I watched Keys play not live but on TV the Adelaide Open, and she beat Pagula. And when I watched that, I was like, oh, I feel like when she went into AO, I think she's playing really well and she's actually going to get really far. And then she just kept winning. And then when she got into the final, I was like, I actually think she's going to win. Because she was just like, I feel like she's just playing really hot, and she just really found the groove, playing good, got a good feel, and she just had really good momentum. I'm interested to see how she goes for the rest of the season. I think she might have a pretty good season.
Yeah, I think it's better for the storyline if that continues. Sometimes you have like these one tournament wonders, and then the player kind of
Yeah.
drops off a bit into an
Yeah.
abyss of some kind, and it's a bit sad. You want them to like, okay, this is the start of something, right? Like that's just because you have a story arc in your head, like okay, that's. But if they just disappear, there's no story, so it's like it kind of
Yeah.
ends there. It's a bit sad. But in her case, I think she will have a pretty good year as well. In my,
Yeah, I
she's
reckon. I
experienced
think so
enough,
too. Yeah, I think she's at a really good age and like maturity with her tennis where she is feeling like very happy within herself. It's like weird to make it about that, but I do think like when tennis players are like quite, you can see when they're happy and like they're feeling fulfilled. So I feel like it'll come out on the court, and it seems to be.
Yeah, and like having a smile on your face while you're playing, or like being not so serious, it's a big winner for me. Like it makes the tennis look more enticing, and it's easier to root for you. If you're
Mm-hmm.
super serious and you're not showing anything, you only have like kind of medium to negative emotions all the time. It's not really that fun to watch usually.
That's true. People do love good personalities when watching. And even more so for like people who don't watch regularly or don't really know the players, they would definitely connect on like the emotion of the player.
What do you think of tennis outfits? If we go look at the AO, like what are the brands doing? Are they
Mm,
misbehaving, or are they're on?
I don't know. You know, they never quite get it right. I think the only outfit I liked, let me think. Lululemon's outfits were nice, but they only had like one color. So it was just like, yeah. On Cloud continues to do this pattern that they're doing with this like ombre thing. I'm like, surely come up with a different style or pattern or something and the colors. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, it was so funny, like all the memes about the Nike dress because both Madison Keys and Sabalenka were both wearing that dress, and everyone was like, why? Because yeah, it was a very odd style of dress. And I also think it's bizarre that Sabalenka doesn't have her own like customized outfit still. It's a bit weird. I don't know. I don't really feel like the issue that I have with outfits. I think that all these big brands that are paying so much to sponsor these players, which is great, they don't make all these clothes that they're making. It's not something that like the average rec player would want to wear. You know what I mean? Like I know women who play tennis and they're just like, oh yeah, I can't find any like nice outfits that look cute and are functional. It's kind of like you have like Adidas, Nike, etc., all just making outfits that are just functional, but I don't think they're aesthetic to wear at all. And so your average player who's like a community player who's kind of the market you want to hit, right, is not going to buy those outfits. Like that Adidas dress was so ugly. And the holes, I was like, all I was thinking the whole time was like, it's so hot. They must be getting such ugly tan lines. With the gaps on the shoulders, I was like, that's just so impractical. Like, so, I don't know what the point of it is. Yeah. I think a lot of them are really not by like creating products or designs that are like for consumers that they would actually want to purchase. I don't know. It'd be interesting to poll people. I don't think many people would be like, oh, I watched this person play and I went to go buy that dress.
No, I think they missed the mark quite heavily on that. Like I don't know the sales numbers, but I would predict based on talking to some brands and stuff that it's difficult to sell. Like I talked to Nike as well, and apparently I met them the other day, and it's like apparently like they sell from the men's apparel, but the women are not super comfortable buying what the women players wear. Like that's the feeling I had. Like that's the information I get. That is like it's tougher to sell like these weird dresses. Of course, it doesn't feel like exactly what you said. Like they're not really a practical purchase or not something you're like, okay, wow, this. And the guy stuff is usually quite boring. It's like, oh, we have a yellow now,
Yeah,
okay. You
correct.
didn't do anything else. Like that's it, and
Yeah.
a very few guys should wear like the sleeveless of Alcaraz, right? So it's like
Uh-huh.
I remember when Rafa and Roger were like at the height of their abilities and their personal brands, and people would buy Federer stuff, they would buy Rafa stuff, depending on their preference and their allegiance. And I think like Nike sold so much, it's like everyone had the
Yeah.
same kind of outfits. And now it's just not there, it just feels like a little bit like the Adidas stuff is quite, and the Nike is not that exciting either.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's
But I also
not a
don't like
great
that
time.
they're not putting much effort into like making a customized outfit for certain players. Like for example, I think Rafa and Roger both had a very distinctive style on court. And so if you were a fan of those players, you would go and buy, like, I mean, even Rafa with his like 3/4 length pants, right, that he always had a wedgie with, even that was like very distinctively him. So even if you maybe didn't, I don't know, if you were just a guy that just really loved Rafa, people would just go on Fangirl and like buy those pants, right? There's nothing really distinctive. Like you could be doing that for Sabalenka. I think the only outfit that I was like, oh, that's so cool, was Naomi Osaka's like US Open. She had like a really cute, like a big bow on her jacket, and then like it was just like a fun outfit, right? And she was having like fun with fashion on the court, which I just don't think like we saw much of that at all this AO. Yeah.
No, but it's funny. Like they have these huge stars, like that could really have their individuality like shown on the court and in their clothes, on the men's and women's side. Like you said, Sabalenka should have a signature, collection. Even on the Alcaraz and Sinner should have signature collections, of course, and other guys. But then they wear the same stuff, Obviously, they tailor it to their preferences, but it's like the same stuff. It feels like it's a lazy approach when they could have like take a bit of a risk to illustrate that person's personality, and then see if that resonates. And if people love this player, they would buy it. But if that player wears exactly the same as 10 other players, like, why would you buy it then? It's
exactly.
Not logical, really.
Exactly. I think I wasn't obsessed with her outfit, but Coco Gauff had like a pretty cool outfit that was like a bit different. But I didn't love the men's because I was confused the whole time, thinking they were like from the Australian team. Because like Tommy Paul was he was playing an Australian guy and he was wearing like green and yellow. And I was like, are you the Australian? I thought the whole time he was Australian. I was like, oh my God, no, you're Tommy Paul. But that's also confusing. Why wouldn't you balance do that?
But you're not just an avid tennis player. I wanted to get into that as well. Like you love running. You do a lot of running content. And how does that feature in your life? You've always been a runner. Do you you run every day? What's your running life like?
I used to be a very avid runner. I used to run every day, and run. Yeah, I used to run like every day, just like wake up and run like 6K every day. It was just like my thing. I think I started doing that when I was about 17, and then I just didn't stop. I feel like that was like my first time I really started exercising and like moving into and being more aware of fitness. And so I started running, and then that just became something that I love to do. And I ran like half marathons, I ran like long runs, and I was like, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. But I also just enjoyed it for like endurance. It was just, I am not an agile or explosive power person. Like I just can't sprint to save myself. But endurance running, I was like, oh, this is really fun. I'm actually like, this is something I'm good at. But I also think like running for me has just always been, it helped me set up frequency and like a habit of exercising. So I think like starting with running and doing that every day, now I'm like a person that just moves every day. And so I have changed like what I focus on. So I think just naturally, but now I do less running, and I've been doing like a lot of like strength training, just because I think I got to a point where I was running so much, but I didn't have enough like strength in my core. And I felt like I would be very prone to getting injured having not had a balanced like core or like glutes and all that sort of stuff. So I focused a bit more on that. And I also kind of injured like my right leg a few years back. And so I just haven't been able to run at the same speed that I used to. I used to be like pretty fast. And so I've been like slowly trying to churn back and like get back to a pace. But yeah, I think right now I've been focusing so much on tennis and like going to do my strength training that I haven't been running every day, but I try to run like maybe like 2-3 times a week. But for me, I actually really love running now for whenever I travel. It's the easiest thing to do. Just like take your runners and then just run the streets and like explore, see new things. So I always love running. And I think this year I'm going to say it here, which maybe that makes me commit to it. But I wanted to do a marathon this year, but I just need to find time to like be good at tennis and continue like to grow my tennis and like get better at it, and also get back into running. So I think after my wedding, I will create a training plan and have the bandwidth for it.
Sounds good. So what's the honeymoon plan? Can you share that?
No, I don't have any honeymoon plan at the moment because we travel quite a bit. So I feel like really want to go to Africa. That's probably where I'd want to go for like our actual honeymoon. But I don't think we haven't planned anything, so we'll see. Our wedding is a destination wedding in New Zealand, so I felt it was too much to take all of my stuff there and then go immediately on a honeymoon. So we think we'll just do that, regroup, and then do something later in the year.
Yeah, well, and I miss them. You're already traveling to the wedding, so I guess that makes sense to just to like now New Zealand is beautiful as well. Like, did you stay around there for a while? I guess.
Yeah, I think we're just staying like a few days after the wedding. So we'll be in New Zealand for like a total of like 17 days. So that'll be nice.
And what other plans do you have for the year? Like, what's like you going on the tennis tournaments? Any interesting travel besides that that's already planned, or you kind of after the wedding, life starts again now with a slightly different setup?
Yeah, we haven't made major plans this year. Yeah, no, I actually don't have plans. I would probably like to go to the US at some point, to visit my sister. And maybe I can try and like tee it up with going to like the Open. I think next year I'll try and plan to go to Europe and like try and go to Wimbledon or Roland Garros. That'd be really fun. But yeah, I don't know. I'm very what the people call it free spirited, but yeah, we'll see. I'll probably end up traveling somewhere. Yeah.
But you always travel, right? Like, because you do you ever get fatigued? Like, you've always been traveling a lot. Like, that's what I get from you as well. And I the same here, you know. But I sometimes get if it's been like 3 weeks of traveling in different places, I feel like okay, I need to be home for a little bit, and then you get that bug again.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a weird battle for me because I do really enjoy traveling, but at the same time I actually really enjoy routine and being in one place because it's easier to work out and play tennis and do all that sort of stuff. Like once you're traveling, you just don't have the same intensity, I think, when you like want to play tennis or like do those sort of things and you have like more distractions. And so, yeah, I think I definitely get fatigued. I also feel like I get more fatigued thinking about the travel I have to do before. Like I'm like, got to be away for like 3 weeks and then think about that versus when I'm actually in the moment, I just like really enjoy myself.
What would be like a dream trip? What would be like okay, this? I mean, Africa. You said for the after the wedding maybe and some kind of extended honeymoon, but would there be like a dream tennis trip? You know, to watch a tennis tournament or something?
Yeah. I haven't been to the Roland Garros and I haven't been to the US Open. I did go to the Wimbledon when I was like 18. So I would like to go to Roland Garros. Although watching it on TV doesn't seem like it's like that fun, to be honest. It seems like the energy is not quite there. Same with the US Open. I always feel like they see like people like a lot of empty seats. And I have heard the US Open is very commercial, like very expensive for everything, which is standard. Um, so I think my dream, I think I would like to go back to the Wimbledon properly and like go to center courts. Because when I went, I was like a poor student and just had like a ground pass equivalent and just had a look around at all the practice courts and stuff. So I think I would like to go probably to Wimbledon and properly do it, go to all the nice stadiums. Maybe it'd be nice to go on like a brand trip to Wimbledon. Hint, hint, anyone listening. That would be, yeah, I think that'd be pretty cool. I did really enjoy doing like the AO ASICS trip because it just was fun. You got to see like behind the scenes stuff. You got to meet players, and it was just like a different level of access. Whereas, yeah, when you just go as like a layman, it's not the same. Yeah,
Yeah, brands hook her up and hook me up as well. I would say
hook us
that's
both
always
up. It's a
yeah.
it's a 2-for-1 package.
Yeah, it's always nice to go on tennis trips. Sometimes they're not as organized as you would like, as I said, but they're obviously always nice. And you're always, I mean, with tennis, it's the same when we met in San Luis Obispo. Like it's like if you have a great group, it's like adds extra fun to it, you know, and you have a great time together, and that makes the whole experience so much better than just being alone and going for a tennis tournament. That can be
Yeah.
quite just fun watching tennis, but then you get a bit bored usually after a while.
Yeah, I think that's what I've enjoyed as well. Like going to these brand trips is going and networking and like actually meeting people who do tennis stuff. And it's interesting to see what everybody does and like their journey to what they've started creating, or their experience and their perspectives. It is really refreshing. I think I can actually enjoy that the most from when I go on these brand trips. It's just like learning about people and their journey.
Do you have any social media goals? Like what you're working on the social media side? I know you have a day job as well, so it's not like a full-time thing for you
Yeah.
yet, but do you have any plans to grow?
Plans, yes. I want to do something like different with my content this year and try and have a bit more of maybe like themes within my content. I do really like when people do like series. I think it's more engaging. So I'm trying to come up with like a series that would be engaging and that I can commit to doing, maybe around like skills or me getting like better. I think for me, I've realized that my point of difference is that yes, I'm someone who's like learning tennis and getting better. And so how can I better document that for people about being more specific around like, okay, maybe I'm going to focus on learning a slice and giving people who are also learning like the insight on that. Like, oh, this is how, like working with coaches to get more insight on like technique and skill, and then my progression. So I think I want to do a better job of that and showcasing like the actual progressive learning and the steps it takes. So yeah, I'm planning to try and do a series. I think I also want to commit more to like outfitting and maybe review a wider range of brands, and be more active in like buying or like trying to like try out different outfits so that I can be more consistent in that space as well. I think my overall social media goal is to just be like consistent with my theme generally. Yeah. What about you? What's your social media goal?
Yeah, my social media goals, I don't know. Like, so I sometimes struggle with being in front of the camera a little bit, like, and I get bored of myself. Luckily, I have like few guys now helping with tennis nerd writing and stuff like this. But it's fun to do more travel, maybe vlogs. Sometimes they don't really resonate as well. Like, I hate to get too stuck in just reviewing gear and rackets. That's fun at some points, but not all, or everything I want to do. So, but maybe doing something more with the travels. I already have so many kind of like, things planned, like in terms of partnerships and stuff, that I it's hard to find time to innovate beyond that. But the travel usually helps. I want to go to Indian Wells. I'm trying to work on that, and that would make for some fun content, hopefully. But it's always tricky to find a way. I like your idea with themes. I think the learning theme was what everybody likes, because we're all on a different journey, right? So we're just trying. I can resonate with someone trying to improve one shot, or trying to run a mile faster, or learning to cook, or whatever it is. I know you love food as well, right? So I think having different themes makes it engaging for different types of people as well, like, and they can follow your journey. So I think that's a good idea, actually.
Yeah, I think you should vlog. I love your vlogs. You should vlog. Keep vlogging. I think you can definitely continue to do that style of content, and people will just like, it's different, but people will like learn to like it, and it'll reach different audience as well. I've also been thinking about getting back into YouTube, and trying to spend like more time of like outputting more content, but I just need to think about like my time and whether like what I would want to post on YouTube. So yeah.
Yeah, do you put your Insta content on like shorts as well, or no?
I'm really bad with it. I should, but I always just post on Instagram and then I like walk away from my phone. But I really need to be like posting on on all the platforms. I'm just that's the goal of this year, is post everything on every account that I have more consistently.
Yeah, I think that helps. Like, in general, like, you can see, even though some platforms might not work as well, I think over time, I think it's if you have 1 minute video, the format is already done, right? For TikTok, for YouTube Shorts, so you don't need to adapt it so much. It's different when like a 10-minute YouTube video into a 1 minute is trickier. That I find, like, YouTube is a very time demanding thing to do. Like, you really, especially when you see people do the Mr. Beast edits with all the numbers popping up and the sound effects and that stuff. If you're gonna do that, then it's gonna take ages to do one video, and then the return of investment is sometimes doubtful, I would say, in my experience. But I think you have a good plan then, right? Like, really, like more platforms, but also like maybe more themes.
Hopefully, we've got to be more intentional. So overall takeaway.
And play more tennis. Well, I'm already playing 4 times a week. It's pretty good. So
yeah, I know. I need to be having more lessons though. We'll get back into it after the wedding. My whole life starts again after that.
Yeah, I know. It's a big thing happening in your life. So
yeah.
I wish you all the best for the wedding. Huge congrats.
Thank you.
And for your trip there to New Zealand and everything. And we keep in touch, okay? It's been great chatting to you, as always. And I hope to see you at some tennis events in the very near future, post-wedding.
Yes, for sure. Post-wedding, I'll be alive again. But thank you. I will chat to you soon.